So Middle East peace talks are already under pressure after Israel approved over 2,000 new settlement homes in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians are set to resume for a second round in Jerusalem, but expectations are low. The two sides have been brought together for the first time since 2010, but the settlements issue has been around for decades. And the battle over 10,000 square miles of territory between the Jewish community and the Palestinians started back in 1917 when the establishment of a Jewish homeland was approved. Decades later, the Arab-Israeli war ended with Israel in control of most of the territory. The Gaza Strip was controlled by Egypt and the West Bank was occupied by Jordan, while Jerusalem was divided. So now, following the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt and the Golan Heights from Syria. And although the Israeli army didn't annex the West Bank from Jordan, it started to occupy the area. After decades of fighting, Israel's share of the land has grown from 3% to almost 80%. And Israel's plans for more settlements may derail the peace talks, as RT's Paul Eslier reports.
Today, for the first time in 3 years, Israelis and Palestinians will be resuming direct talks in Jerusalem. This follows preparatory talks that were held a fortnight ago in Washington. But both sides are skeptical and no one is expecting a breakthrough. The problem is that these talks are resuming against the backdrop of an announcement by Israel that it is expanding its settlement. Now, the European Union has warned that this is illegal. Palestinians are also warning that this will cause the negotiations to collapse before they even begin. They accuse the Israeli government of trying to sabotage these talks, and they also complain that current Israeli settlement growth is at unprecedented levels. Israel has rejected this criticism. It says that every peace initiative so far has proposed that the settlements affected become part of Israeli territory. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has officially said that he wants these talks to succeed. But the problem is that both his government and the Israeli public are split over them. Earlier, 26 of 104 Palestinian prisoners that Israel is releasing as a confidence measure to bolster these talks were set free. Now, they were all convicted by Israel of carrying out attacks against Israelis before the Oslo Accords of 1993. The Israeli government said that this was a difficult but necessary step, but there have been demonstrations in Israel by both right-wing protesters and also friends and family of Israelis who were killed in attacks carried out by at least some of these prisoners.
You should know that the majority of the citizens of Israel, 84.9%, are against this deal. Many people here in Israel feel disappointed and angry with our Prime Minister and government. We feel betrayed because we trusted them. As
for the Palestinians themselves, Hamas, which is the leadership in Gaza, is not part of these negotiations and refuses to be. Now, the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, as he comes to these talks, is definitely not talking with a united Palestinian voice, as is neither the Israeli Prime Minister. Paul Eslier, RT, Tel Aviv.
And for more on the Middle East peace process, let's now go live to Ron Pundak. He's heading the Palestinian-Israeli Peace NGO Forum. Mr. Pundak, welcome to RT. It's good to have you with us. The two sides are finally agreed. Hello there. So to meet face-to-face later today. Do you think that peace between Israelis and Palestinians any closer?
Well, I have my doubts, I must admit, mainly because the two sides were coming or are coming to these negotiations not by a sheer will and wish, but by the pressure of the Americans. And now comes the question, while they will sit around one table and they will start to discuss the issues, the final status issues that you portrayed earlier, the issues of borders, the issue of security, Jerusalem, partition, issues very delicate like and sensitive like refugees, Palestinian refugees. As I know the situation and I'm following and participating both in negotiations and outside following it, the gaps between the current Israeli government led by Benjamin Netanyahu and the Palestinian side led by Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, the gaps are too big, too huge, too deep to be bridged on final status issues. And now comes the question whether the Americans will try to pursue and push what John Kerry was talking about, 6 to 9 months or 9 months of negotiations towards final status. My humble opinion is that the ability to come today into a final status agreement between these two sides is impossible, mainly because I would say, hesitantly, but I would say that we have a Palestinian partner for final status negotiations, but we don't have a real Israeli partner currently for final status negotiations. We had in the past, in 2008, an Israeli courageous Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, who was ready to do it, but unfortunately, since he had legal problems, the negotiations stopped. The current government led by Netanyahu will not be able to move forward. And then comes the question, what can the Americans do? And I believe that they can pursue a different process which will bring us one step forward towards peace, not towards a solution, but towards peace within a very complex but very, I believe, possible big structure with two elements. One element, Israel, creating a vision. I'll do it very quickly, just to finish the sentence. To create a vision for final status through a Security Council resolution, to speak about two states, to speak about withdrawal to 67 borders, to speak about partition of Jerusalem, and then parallelly to go towards an interim agreement which will create a Palestinian state with interim borders, and then later to move on towards implementing the vision of final status.
Plus, Israel announced just recently its plans for more settlements. So how will that affect the process, and why now? Briefly, if you can.
Well, the settlement issue obviously is a problem, and also the settlement issue is a problem, and obviously currently the Israeli government is also tied within itself with the coalition, and within the coalition there are elements which, if the government will freeze settlements, they will leave the coalition, and the Prime Minister is afraid of the total breaking of the coalition. So I believe that there will be a very small process of continuation of activity in the settlements, but I believe the Americans will be able to contain it as long as there will be negotiations.
Mr. Ponduk, sorry to interrupt you. Mr. Ron Ponduk, head of the Palestinian-Israeli Peace NGO Forum, thank you very much indeed for sharing your views with us. And of course, more stories ahead for you, including Big Ben is watching you, rubbish cans spying on passerbys on the streets of London.